and welcome to This Week in Travel. I'm Michelle Robson, your host and editor of Turning Left for Less. If you're enjoying the podcasts and videos, don't forget to hit subscribe. This week I'll be taking a look at how to start off with credit cards to earn points and miles. But first, let's have a look at the news this week. The strike at Heathrow's Terminal 5 has now finished, and in fact it went off very well in terms of passengers getting through security, and it wasn't really any worse than usual. In fact, some might say it was actually better than was anticipated for a normal Easter weekend. British Airways even managed to open the security channel for the first wing, which is for first class and gold card holders, for part of the day, I believe on Friday. So overall it was not really an issue. However, we know that it has not been settled yet. There has been an offer made by Heathrow to the Unite union, but at the moment Unite are saying they're not even going to present the offer to their members. But it's not looking likely that there will be any resolution anytime soon. In the meantime, some better news with the strikes in France. It was rumoured that air traffic controllers were planning to go on strike every single day in April, which would have been a disaster. They have been going on strike in France fairly regularly, but the good news is it's not every day, and they are giving some notice, but generally not more than a day or two. In better news, Qatar have finally announced the date that they are to restart services from Birmingham Airport. They previously announced in March that they would be restarting, having ditched the airport during the pandemic. These services will start from the 6th of July. Now, previously these were available to book as a British Airways code share. However, at the moment it's not showing as available through British Airways. Often I find if you book Qatar flights through British Airways, they can be a bit cheaper. However, it doesn't mean to say that they won't be available, it's just not showing at the moment. If you are booking Qatar flights, I would recommend actually looking at American Express Travel if you have a Platinum card, because you actually get a discount by using that Platinum card, and that applies to a number of other airlines as well. So it's always worth comparing the fares through American Express Travel if you do have that American Express Platinum card, which entitles you to use the Platinum travel services. British Airways have also started putting in their winter schedule. Although they put in a skeleton, meaning obviously some people have already booked, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily the final schedule. And at the moment they're kind of going through looking, I guess, at how many crew they've got and what aircraft they're expecting to have. What we're seeing is that the A380 is making a comeback to Los Angeles. Now, in some ways that's good. I quite like the British Airways A380 first class. They have these great wardrobes that you can fit your whole case in rather than having to lift it into the overhead lockers, which I think is great. And they're also very private and it's a nice big cabin. However, in business class, there's been a lot of issues with the seats, mainly because of supply issues, which means that they have not been able to repair seats as much as they want. This is part of the reason why there's constantly delays for the A380s, because there's quite often things out of service that need to be looked at. They're also starting the A380 from Boston again, and these are all from the winter schedule, which starts on the 29th of October. One thing to bear in mind is that this means there's likely to be a lot more Avios seats. But as I said, there are some issues with the A380, so it would be those seats that are going to be released. There's 97 seats in club on an A380, which is obviously substantially more than other aircraft in the fleet. So the chances are there will be some more Avios seats released on that route, so it's worth keeping an eye on. I always recommend using Reward Flight Finder or Seat Spy to track the flights. You can pay a very small amount a month for a monthly subscription, and it will alert you whenever new seats are released for the route that you're looking for and on the date that you're looking for. So it's really handy service to use. I use it quite a lot. It's also worth noting that there is one aircraft now at Gatwick, which a reader pointed out has the club suites. It seems to be rostered for Mauritius for this winter, starting again at the end of October. However, nothing is set in stone, so I wouldn't book it solely on the chance that you're going to get club suites, because it could all change again. But at the moment, there is that one aircraft. At the moment, it looks like it's going to Mauritius for the winter, which would be lovely if you're flying there. Not that going to Mauritius in itself isn't enough, really. The main part of today's programme is going to be about credit cards. Now, I'd like to caveat this with a disclaimer in that I'm only a journalist. I'm not someone who is a financial advisor, and I'm only going to be talking about the credit cards in terms of the points and miles. I'm not going to be looking at the financial aspects. Obviously, you need to do your research and what suits you, looking at things like the interest rates and whether you could actually cope with having a credit card. Personally, I use mine exactly like a debit card, so I have them set up so that they just clear the balance automatically every month. I don't have to think about it then, and you don't build up a balance, because generally the credit rates on these are terrible. So yeah, you really want to pay them off every month. I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail about every single card or the sign-up bonuses. This is because they change all the time, there's different offers, and this is meant to be more of a kind of beginner's guide, a starting point. So once you hear something that you think might suit you, then I would suggest you go and do some research, and I will put a couple of links in below that are about some of the things we've talked about today. So the first thing you need to decide when you want to get a credit card that's going to earn you either Avios, other airline miles or points is exactly what you want to get from it. So is it solely just because you want to get miles or your Avios? Is it because you'd like some perks attached to it as well? And if it's to get miles or points, what airline do you plan to fly on? Do you want to be exclusively Oneworld? Would you use Virgin Atlantic, for example? Or would you actually like a choice? So my top tip is to consider something like the American Express card. The reason I say this is because it's really flexible. Now, it doesn't have the best earning rate compared with something like the British Airways premium card. The reason for this is because you can actually transfer it into lots of different currencies in effect, so lots of different points and miles currencies, and that's why I really like it. So say, I don't know, British Airways devalues their Avios scheme, which happens from time to time. It means you've still got all those points if you keep them in your American Express account like I do. And it means then you could transfer it to something else. You're not stuck with them in one particular scheme. So that's why I tend to use credit cards that give membership rewards. Now, the two American Express cards that give membership rewards that have travel perks or are probably most suitable for people that want to travel are the American Express Preferred Gold card and also the Platinum card. So if we start with the Gold card, this is generally viewed by most people like myself as being the perfect starting card. The reason for that is it's free for the first year, so it's kind of risk-free, and as I said, it gives you that flexibility with the membership rewards that mean you can decide what you want to do with the points. However, if you do decide to close the card after a year, you will need to transfer those points out, so just bear that in mind. So let's talk a little bit more about membership rewards. The thing that I like about membership rewards is you can just leave all your points sitting there, and you have a huge range of things that you can use them for. Now, you can use them for things like when you're shopping, you can use them for shopping vouchers, but actually the best value generally comes from transferring them into points or miles. There's a big range of things that you can transfer them into, including Hilton, Marriott and Radisson if you want hotel points. And on the airlines, the selection's even better with British Airways, Qantas, Emirates, Etihad, Virgin Atlantic, Delta and also Finnair. Now, Finnair is a useful one if you happen to book with them and then wanted to upgrade, for example, with points. So you could just use your points from your American Express card without necessarily having to start earning Finnair points from somewhere else. And it gives a good option for making Finnair a lot more affordable. Obviously, there's got to be reward availability, but it's nice to have that option because you can't do that using Avios. Avios is probably the thing that most people collect, so you can transfer into Avios on a one-to-one basis with membership rewards, so every one membership reward you earn is equal to an Avios. It varies depending on which scheme you're transferring into, so if you've got something in mind, it's definitely worth having a look to see what the transfer rate is on that. It also means that your points don't expire. Obviously, if you have them in an airline or a hotel scheme, normally there's some kind of expiry for those points or miles. So at least when you know they're sitting in American Express, then they're not going to expire. So how many Avios or membership reward points do you earn per pound spent? Well, it's pretty simple. It's 1 point per pound spent. There are some exceptions, such as booking flights, which get 2, or using American Express Travel, which get 3. And that's all per pound. So it's not the best earning rate compared with something like one of the paid British Airways cards, but it's not a bad rate at all. And as I said, it's the flexibility for me that you're paying for. It does come with a few perks, but nothing like the American Express Platinum card. Probably the best perk for travellers is the fact you get 4 free Priority Pass lounge passes per year. And obviously you'll get that from every single year, not just the first year. And then you can also get a discounted rate to buy further ones at £20 each, which is not bad. I think that's a decent value thing for the first year where you're not actually paying anything. And for future years where you're paying £160, then actually it's not that bad, because if you think probably an average lounge access nowadays is about £35. So that's kind of £140 worth of value that you're getting there just from those. You also get Deliveroo credits. So if you happen to use Deliveroo, that could be one for you. Obviously nothing to do with travelling, but you can use 2 £5 credits per month if you use your card to pay. There's also a few other minor bits and pieces, but nothing that would personally sway me to use the card. I think, the main thing for me is the fact it's free, and then it goes to £160 a year, which is not bad, and it's that flexibility. If you wanted more perks, then you'd be looking at the American Express Platinum card. Now, this used to be a charge card, but it's actually now a credit card. At the moment, there's a really good offer on, providing you're a bit of a high spender, because there is 60,000 membership reward points as a sign-up bonus. Now, this is on until June. I'll put the link with all the full details below. And the caveat is that you have to spend £6,000, but in the first 6 months. So it's not as bad as some of the previous offers. You have got a bit longer. You've got 6 months to get that 60,000 Avios or membership reward points, however you want to transfer it. So I think that's one of the best offers that you're likely to get in terms of sign-up bonuses. One thing to bear in mind is whether you're entitled to the sign-up bonus. If you have had an American Express card that earns membership reward points in the last 2 years, the chances are you won't be able to get the bonus. You can still apply for the card, but you can't get the bonus. But again, worth looking at all the terms and conditions just to be sure before you apply. The thing I like about the Platinum American Express card is I always say I'm pretty sure I make a profit on that card. It sounds a lot of money. It's £575 a year, which you might think, oh my God, that's huge. However, with all the credits that you get and the benefits, I actually think that it's a really good value card. It's charged monthly now, which doesn't make it seem quite as bad as paying it all at once. If we look at the sums here, as part of this offer, you're also getting a one-off £200 credit to spend with American Express Travel. Now, obviously, you could spend this on anything in terms of flights or hotels that they have. So most people, I would think, will manage to get some value out of that. You've got to spend a whole £200 in one go to get it, and you have to have done the £6,000 spend in the first 6 months to get the credit. But again, that's a good feature. You only get that the first year, though. The standard features that you get every year are the dining credits. Now you get £150 to spend at a restaurant in the UK. I'd advise, if you're planning to use this, to have a look and see where they are, because some areas of the UK have less choice. If you're able to get to London, then there's plenty of choice. Otherwise, most of the places seems to be the Ivy, seems to be the most predominant chain that you can use it in. Generally, they tend to be very high-end, the restaurants that are available. So have a look beforehand if that's important to you. You also get £150 to use abroad for dining. Now, I found this a bit more difficult. If you look at the list, there's not huge amounts outside the US. There are some in Europe as well, but it's definitely a bit more limited if you're not going to the US. And even in the US, it's major cities like New York, for example, that have most of the restaurants. However, I did find one in Hawaii when I went recently, and I'm actually off to Charleston fairly soon, and that has quite a few options. So do your research definitely and decide whether you'd actually manage to use it, because if you can't use at least one of those, then for me it's less value in terms of getting the card with that fee. The other thing you get every year is £100 worth of Harvey Nichols credit. Now, you might think, well, what would I buy in Harvey Nichols, especially if you're a man and you're not into your fashion particularly, but they do actually have a whole food section, so you could buy gin or wine, for example, and it works online, so you don't need to go into the shop. That's credited twice a year, so it's £50 twice a year, and you can spend obviously more than £50 and get £50 off, or spend exactly £50 and get it all refunded. So I think that's a pretty good deal, and I think most people will find something they want to buy from there, whether it's food or wine or fashion or beauty, for example. The other things that you get included are also less sort of monetary value in terms of those are actually credits, but you also get the priority pass, which is for you and one other person. If you had a supplementary card, you get one supplementary platinum card, then that person also gets a priority pass. But each card entitles you to take a guest in. So in effect, it's for two people, the card. And you can go in any priority pass lounge in the US, anywhere in the world, basically. It is harder nowadays, so I think it's less of a benefit than it used to be, because a lot of the time you find that you get to the lounge and it's full for priority pass holders, particularly when they have airlines using it as well, because they get priority. However, you can also use the Plaza Premium lounges just by showing your card. You can use the Centurion Lounge. Now, I really like the one at Heathrow's Terminal 3. That's one of the lounges I visit very frequently. And you can also use Delta lounges, and there's a little known benefits about using Lufthansa. When you're flying with Lufthansa, you can actually use the lounge there even in economy. So there's quite a lot of traveller perks. One of the other things I like is if you hire a car, I'm sure you're familiar where there's always some extra insurance you can take. That's, things like tyres and windscreens, etc. What we call excess insurance. Now, American Express actually gives you a policy for each year which covers all of that. If you used to buy it separately, it's about £69 upwards to buy it yourself. So actually, I think that's a good inclusion. They also have travel insurance. If you're under 70, it applies to you. However, they don't cover all pre-existing conditions. So I would definitely recommend looking at the list of pre-existing conditions that they cover. I have actually asked them specifically, and even if they wouldn't cover you for health insurance, they will cover other things, such as missed departure, that type of thing. So it's worth considering, even if you perhaps wouldn't qualify for the medical part of it, in terms of having a pre-existing condition. It's worth having a look, because then you might decide actually that you'll buy a personal policy for the medical side that maybe isn't so good in terms of cover for other things, and use the American Express for that part. So it can still be a benefit even if you're actually not covered medically. I mean, that policy alone is worth quite a lot, because it's not just for you, it's for you and the family as well. So again, have a look at the details there. I'll try and post as much as I can underneath, but I definitely recommend, when you're going to be spending £575 a year on a credit card, make sure you've done your research and you can actually use all the benefits. So that's kind of the main parts about the Platinum card. I will just mention the FHR hotels. Now, this is a bit like our partnership with GCC, that are luxury agents. American Express do their own version, which is very similar in terms of the perks you get. However, it does have one advantage in that you get a 4 p.m. guaranteed checkout. The perks are very slightly different in how they're worded. Some are more guaranteed, some things aren't quite the same. So it's always worth comparing between the two. There may be a situation where actually you really want the 4 p.m. checkout, but it means you get a bit less on other things. So I always kind of compare the two and decide which one I want to go for. You also normally have to pay in advance with the FHR, which you don't with GTC. So that's why I tend to book more through the GTC for the luxury hotels, because I prefer to keep the money in my pocket rather than the hotel's pocket, particularly if I think my plans might change, because then you've got to go through the hassle of getting a refund. So that's the Platinum American Express card in a very basic detail. I think it's great value for money personally. The one thing that I will mention that go across all the credit cards from American Express that I'm going to talk about is the offers. Now, each month you'll get a set of offers, and these could be for absolutely anything. They can be for flights, they can be for hotels, it can be for beauty products, it could be offer pizza, a totally random clothes, anything. I'm guessing it's targeted. Most people tend to get the same. There are some offers that I get and other people don't, and vice versa, but generally most people get the same. And it can be a lot of offers, but I think on my Platinum card I've currently got about 30 at least. Now, these can be quite substantial. For example, at the moment, Marriott have one for £100 off a hotel when you spend, I think it is £300. So if you're going to use these, that really adds up over a year. I tend to use them probably every month. They have taxis as well, which I tend to use. So that all adds to the value that I'm getting from those cards. The cards that have the best offers, funnily enough, are the American Express Platinum, as you'd expect. The Gold generally tends to have similar offers to the Platinum, not quite as good. And then the British Airways and the Marriott cards tend to have different offers. Sometimes they're more targeted to do with getting points, not just necessarily money off. But to me, it's definitely worth considering that that's a perk you get out of them, which might help offset any costs of the card itself. The other useful thing with the American Express Platinum card is the fact that you get status in quite a few different hotel chains. So you get Hilton Gold, you get Marriott Gold, and you also get Melia Gold, and you get status in Radisson Rewards as well. So that's worth factoring in, because obviously that can include things like upgrades, breakfast, etc., depending on which scheme it is. So again, do your research, have a look at which each one gives you. Would you be likely to use it? For me, that was always a big perk in terms of Hilton. Marriott Gold I don't think is quite as useful, but Hilton Gold I used to get a lot of use out of, so definitely have a look at those as well. So let's move on from the Platinum card now into the more specific cards from American Express. So the British Airways cards, there's two of these. There is the free one and then there's the premium one. I'll start by talking about the premium card because that's what I hold. Now, the premium card gives you 1.5 Avios per pound spent, which is pretty good. And, you know, it's the best you're going to get, really. And you get 3 Avios per pound spent on BA.com, which I think is a big perk because if you're like me, a lot of your big spending tends to go on holidays. So you're actually earning some extra points back there. The other thing that most people like the American Express card for British Airways is because obviously you get what we call a companion voucher. Some people call it a 2-for-1, but it's not really. What it means is that you get to take someone for free when you're redeeming Avios, but only free in sense of the Avios. So you pay the amount for one person, but you actually get 2 tickets. But you still have to pay the taxes for both people, and these can be quite substantial. When you're looking at a long haul, it can be up to £800 or more. Obviously now they have what they call the Reward Flight Saver, which means that you can pay more Avios and less cash, but it's still quite expensive in terms of the cash that you need to come up with. So it's not free, the companion voucher, but it is a substantial saving on the amount of Avios you use. The other good thing now about the companion voucher is you can use it for a single person. So instead of having the free person as a companion, you can have 50% off the amount of Avios instead, but you still have to pay the full fees and taxes. You can also now use them on Iberia and you can use them on Aer Lingus. You just book in the normal way on BritishAirways.com and you can get the same deal with them. So I think it's a lot more useful than it used to be, particularly for solo travellers. And there is supposed to be more reward availability with the current vouchers that are issued. That means that you can get I-Class availability as well as the normal Avios bucket. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually mean that there's that much availability because a lot of the time I-Class seems to be very restricted, but technically it means there should be more availability. The British Airways Premium Plus card costs £250 per year, which is quite steep, I think. So I would only recommend this really if you're going to use the companion vouchers. If not, that it seems a lot to me. I think the better option would be something like the Gold card that's only £160. Yes, you're only getting 1 Avios per pound, but I think £250 is quite a lot if you're not going to use the companion voucher. To get the companion voucher, you have to spend £10,000, but the voucher is available to be used for 2 years, and that's the outbound flight has to be within 2 years. The inbound flight can be whenever you want after the outbound. So you've got a decent amount of time to use it, and it can be pretty useful. But as I said, it's not free. There is also a free British Airways card, which earns you 1 Avios per £1 spent, which is obviously equal to the Gold card. However, for the first year, you might be better off just having the Gold card. It does give you a companion voucher, but it's not nearly as useful in my opinion. You have to spend £12,000 in a year to get the companion voucher, but you're only able to use it in economy class. Now, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have said don't touch it with a barge pole. With the current prices of economy, I might say, well, for a start, it's flexible, and secondly, it might actually be cheaper than paying for a cash fare. But you obviously don't get the same value out of it that you would by using it in business class. If you want to redeem in premium economy, business class or first, you have to get the paid option of the card, unfortunately. You also do still get the 50% off though. So if you are a single person or you're likely to travel on your own, then actually this card might not be such bad value because you can still get the 50% off any reward flight. But generally, I would advise opting for the paid card. So next we'll have a look at the Barclaycard options. Now the advantage of these is that it's a MasterCard. The problem with having the American Express cards is, although in the UK they're pretty much widely accepted, and also in the US, there's a lot of places, particularly in Europe, where actually it's hard to find anywhere that takes American Express. So if you travel a lot, then you're going to have trouble using it abroad. So I think it's worth having either a Visa or a MasterCard as a backup. I actually use something called Curve, which is not a credit card, but it is a way that you link your credit card to it, and then it gives you much cheaper spending abroad because you don't get charged the fees in the same way. There are some fees depending on the day of the week, because at weekends it's slightly different, but it means that you still charge the underlying card and you still get all the points etc that you would normally, but you pay a slightly less rate on foreign currency transactions. So worth bearing Curve card in mind, and it's cheap as well. There's a free version or there's more expensive versions that come with perks, so worth considering Curve card. With the Barclaycard, the main advantage of them is the fact that you can get an upgrade voucher. However, Barclaycard I find not the best in terms of their IT. They're very slow to have things like Apple Pay or be able to pair it with Curve, and I've found generally dealing with them quite difficult. The other disadvantage is the fact that if you have an existing Barclaycard account, or credit card should I say, of any kind, then you will not be able to open this credit card unless you close it, and then you have to wait a period of time before you can apply. This seems completely ridiculous to me. If you've got a card that you never use and has not got no balance on it, yes, you can cancel it, but why should you have to wait? I just don't get it. I can understand not giving you the bonus because they want to prevent people churning, but to not be able to apply for the card just seems completely wrong to me. There are two options with the Barclaycard MasterCards. There's a free option and then there's the Plus option, which is paid. Now the Plus option is an easier way to earn the upgrade voucher, which I'll talk about in a second. It costs £240 a year, which is charged monthly, so £20 a month, which doesn't seem so bad. With this you get 1.5 Avios per pound earned, and you get an upgrade voucher when you spend £10,000 in a year. So the upgrade voucher is not technically an upgrade voucher. The reason it's not is because you still have to pay the taxes and charges for the cabin you are upgrading into. What you don't have to pay is the Avios for that cabin. So in effect, what you'll do if you wanted to upgrade from World Traveller Plus, so that's Premium Economy, to Club, then you would look for the Club class availability. So there has to be availability in the higher class, but you would book it using the Avios that you would normally need for the World Traveller Plus. But you would have to pay all the taxes and charges that you'd normally pay for Club. So it's a good deal, but it's not a great deal. So worth bearing that in mind, that it's not actually going to save you money, but it will save you some Avios, exactly the same as the BA Companion voucher. And also worth kind of doing your sums as to how you'd use it, as to whether it's better to get the upgrade voucher or a companion voucher. Obviously with the companion voucher, if you're on your own, you could use it for 50% off. Whereas if you're on your own with the Barclaycard voucher, then you can get the upgrade. If you are a couple, then probably the companion voucher is better in a lot of ways, because unless you've got a card each and both get an upgrade voucher, you can only use it in effect for one way each or for one person. So it's not as great for a couple. The free version gets one Avios per pound. So it's actually, as a starting card, it's not a bad option. It doesn't give you quite such a good deal with the upgrade voucher because you have to spend £20,000 in a year to get it, but you can use it exactly the same. It's not like the British Airways one where you can't upgrade into certain classes. You can use it to upgrade into Club, for example. It's not just for economy. So in that respect, it's a better deal on the free card, I would say, than the companion voucher, even though you're having to spend more to get it. Obviously, if you're not going to spend the £20,000, you'd be better off with the British Airways one that's £12,000. But if you are going to spend £20,000 and you prefer your premium cabins, then you're better off with the Barclaycard. So if you're not a British Airways collector, and in fact if you're interested in Virgin Atlantic or SkyTeam, then the Virgin Atlantic card is probably your best option. I hold this card and I like it for a lot of reasons, but there are some drawbacks. One thing I don't like about it is the fact that you cannot use it except on an app in terms of managing your account. Now that's great, but trying to look at statements is not particularly great on a small screen, and then the way that you have to download them and then get them from your phone onto a laptop, if that's how you want to look at it. I personally would prefer to be able to manage it online in a laptop and also on a phone, because sometimes you may not have access to one or the other, and I just think it's simpler. Like if you, like me, you drop your phone in the water and it's out of action, then it means you can't actually get into your account. So I think that's a bit of a mistake personally, but otherwise I think it's a really good card. One of the reasons I like the Virgin Atlantic card, and in fact the Virgin Atlantic scheme, is because not only do you get access to SkyTeam in terms of redeeming and earning miles, there's also a whole load of other very interesting airlines, including Singapore and Hawaiian and ANA, that you can redeem your miles on or earn them on. Plus now, of course, you have the whole world of SkyTeam, which includes KLM and Air France, which are great for short haul or for connecting onwards into Asia, which Virgin Atlantic don't cover most of Asia. There are two versions of the credit card. As usual, the paid version is better in terms of what you get, and there is also a free version. So let's have a look at the paid version, which is what I hold first. You earn 1.5 Virgin points on the card, which is a decent rate, I think. And you can also earn a bonus every year, which is for either an upgrade voucher or a companion voucher. So in terms of that, I think the flexibility is good. Again, one of the issues that I'll touch on is the IT. I really do think that they could improve this, not just in what I was talking about with the statements, but in terms of the vouchers. You can't see them online. You can't see when they expire, and you have to keep track of it yourself, and you can't redeem them online. So I think there's a lot Virgin could do to make this a better product. The only way that you can see that you've definitely earned them is to look in your account, and when you look under like your account statement for miles, points I should say, with Virgin Atlantic, then actually you can see it comes up like a redemption, says when you earn the voucher. They do normally email you, but if you're like me, the chances are you see it and then forget it and then can't find it again when you're trying to work out when it expires. So definitely you need to be quite disciplined with this and make sure you make a note of it all, because otherwise, trying to go through months worth of statements to try and find out where it was that you got sent it or find it in all your emails is a bit of a faff. So yeah, I do think the IT could be better, but if you're reasonably well organised, it can be good. There's also some quirks with the vouchers as well. So it depends on what status you are as to what you can actually redeem. The Rewards Plus card costs £160 a year, which I think is reasonable compared with the others, and you get 1.5 Virgin points per pound spent, or 3 spent with Virgin Atlantic. In terms of the upgrade vouchers or the companion vouchers, you get these after spending £10,000. You have a choice between the two. So as I said before, if you're two people, you might want to, or you want to fly with someone else, then you might want to use the companion voucher. But there's a big caveat with this, which makes it less good value for a lot of people. If you only have the normal status in Virgin Atlantic's flying club, so red status, basically no status, then it actually means you can only use it for anything other than economy by spending 50% on the second ticket. So it's not a free second ticket. So it's 50% off the points for the second ticket. Plus, with all of these, as with British Airways, you do still have to pay the full fees and taxes for the other person, which again can be £600 to £800 per person in upper class. So it's not an insubstantial amount of money. With the upgrades, you can upgrade by one class from the Economy Classic or Delight to Premium, or from Premium to Upper Class. This is only for one person, so obviously this is better if you're a solo traveller or you don't mind that you're going to have to pay for the other person in full. And this is available for reward flights only. With the free card, you also get the cuts. With the free card, you only earn 0.75 points per pound, or double that, 1.5 when you spend at Virgin Atlantic. So it's not a great earning rate, but for a free card, it's not bad. You do also earn the companion vouchers and the upgrade vouchers. However, With the free card, you still get the upgrade and the companion voucher, but you have to spend £20,000 in a year to get them, and the same terms and conditions apply. So if you're only a red member, you have to pay 50% of the second ticket on the companion voucher versus it being free if you're silver or gold. I would also say one thing about the Virgin card that's useful is that they do not charge currency fees on transactions in euros, Swedish krona and Romanian lei. So it is a useful card if you do a lot of travelling in Europe and you don't want to get something like the Curve card that I talked about earlier. Well, that's it for my overview. I haven't mentioned all the cards. I will just say that there are HSBC accounts that give credit cards that you can also earn Avios through. There's also business cards like Capital One, which is available for limited companies, and there's also the American Express cards for businesses, although at the moment the British Airways business cards are not available. So it's worth looking at those if you think a business card might be more your thing. If you are looking for something for a hotel, then really you've only got the Marriott card in the UK. Most of the other cards like Hilton and IHG have gone for new applicants. The Marriott card's actually pretty useful because as well as being able to earn Marriott points, those Bonvoy points can be turned into a number of different airlines. So it's a way to collect airline points as well and have that flexibility, a bit like having the gold or platinum card. However, generally I'd advise you not to have it if you're just going to turn them into airline miles. But if you think you're going to mainly use them for Marriott but want a bit of flexibility, then it's pretty good. The reason I like the card is the fact that you get 15 nights elite credit per year. So say, for example, you want to get platinum status in Marriott, then you will already get 15 nights by having the credit card towards your 50-night goal to get that status. So that's a really good reason, I think, for getting the card. You also obviously earn the Marriott points on it. The card costs £75 a year, which I think is pretty good value actually, when you compare it to some of the other cards. There are some extra perks. If you spend £25,000 in a year, you get 25,000 bonus points. And also if you spend £15,000 in a year, you get gold status. So it can be a cheaper way if you're going to spend quite heavily than getting Marriott status through the Platinum card, for example. The earning rate's quite decent, with 2 points per pound spent and 6 points per pound spent at Marriott. So I think if you're a heavy at Marriott user, this is probably pretty much a no-brainer if you want to earn more points. I certainly use it whenever I stay at Marriott with the £6 per 6 points cut with the 6 points per pound. So that's all for this week. Next week I'm going to be bringing you the news whilst I'm in Charleston, so you'll get hopefully a glimpse of my room in Charleston, and it'll be a bit sunnier there, I'm hoping, as I'm sitting here recording in the rain. But we'll also be concentrating on Vegas next week, because I'll be interviewing my friend Steve, who is known as Vegas UK on Twitter. He's a Vegas expert and he'll be talking about visiting Vegas for the first time, as well as all my tips and tricks on where to stay, how to get the best deals, and what to do whilst you're there. A lot of people don't like Vegas the first time they visit because I think they do it wrong. And yes, there is, I think, a right way to do it if you're not someone who likes big hotels and crowds and gambling. There's a whole nother side to Vegas that I'll be discovering with Steve next week. So join me then, and until then, happy travels.